Is this thing on? Hello? Hello? Whatever. We're live. What is up, guys? It's Alex Johnson here, the founder and lead analyst at yardsperfantasy.com. Welcome to the 128th episode of the Feed Me Fantasy podcast. Let's eat. There's only a few days left to draft a best ball resurrection team. So start drafting right now. While you're listening to this show, the tournament runs week 6 through week 17. It's giving away $500,000 in prizes. And if that's not for you, then just draft weekly teams. It's basically DFS and snake draft form. Or play their pick'ems, and you can catch all of my picks in the Yards Per Fantasy DFS and betting guide, which you can sign up for at yardsperfantasy.com/bets. But get on Underdog, use promo code YARDSPER to get a $100 deposit match. Just go to underdogfantasy.com or download the Underdog Fantasy app. You can also use that same code, YARDSPER, to get a 125% deposit bonus on BetUS. Just sign up, use promo code YARDSPER, get your free money, and start betting. Easy as that. But today we are talking ads, drops, buys, and sells. And I know we normally do this show on Wednesdays, but today's Tuesday. Schedule's all screwed up for me this week. That I was like, you know what? I have some time on Tuesday. Let's do a show. Let's do a show for the people one day early. How about that? So we're talking ads, drops, buys, and sells, like I said. And the obvious ad of the week is Kenneth Walker. Obviously, if you're in deeper leagues, he's already rostered. But Kenneth Walker is still available in a lot of shallow leagues. If you're in one of these, he is your number one priority this week. Not only that, he is the waiver wire ad of the year. This is what you've been holding back your fab for. Spend it all on Kenneth Walker. The Seattle offense has greatly exceeded our preseason expectations thanks to the performance of quarterback Geno Smith. And with Rashad Penny out for the season, the path has been paved for this talented rookie to take on a significant workload. Walker is a thick back at 5'9", 211 pounds, and he has blazing 4.38 speed to go with it. Walker is versatile in his running style, and he wins with an impressive combination of power, speed, and elusiveness. Go get Kenneth Walker. And speaking of the Seahawks and quarterback Geno Smith, how in the world is Geno Smith still available in so many leagues? Sure, this has been one of the most surprising developments in all of fantasy football this year, but it feels like it's been so shocking that it's given fantasy managers waiver wire paralysis. It's time to react, people. This is happening. This is actually happening. This is reality. Smith is the QB6 in fantasy points right now. QB6. 5 weeks is enough of a sample to say that this is legitimate. He has the weapons, and his defense is bad enough to force him into negative game scripts. But Geno Smith himself, he actually has played really well. He's near the top of the league in a number of efficiency metrics. Go get Geno Smith. Sticking with the waiver wire for a minute, I want you to add, this is for the deeper leagues, definitely for the deeper leagues. Add Pierre Strong. And you can add him in shallow leagues too if you have the roster spots. When Damian Harris left Sunday's game with a hamstring injury, Ramondre Stevenson was all that was left at running back. That's because Ty Montgomery's on injury reserve, and Pierre Strong, he was inactive. That's likely to change this week, however, as reports have indicated that Harris is likely to miss several weeks. Strong will be active on game days, spelling Stevenson, and maybe getting some work on passing downs. While it may not be, a fantasy relevant role right away, an injury to Ramondre Stevenson would thrust Pierre Strong into the starting lineup. Remember, Pierre Strong was the fastest running back at the NFL Combine this year. He's got speed. He was ultra productive at South Dakota State. I mean, don't spend a lot of fab to get him, but scoop him up, stash him, see what happens. See what happens. I also want you to go and find Eno Benjamin on your waiver wire. This is the week. This is the week, guys. The running backs. Eno Benjamin was already on our radar as the team's, best receiving back, especially with James Conner dealing with some injuries coming into week 5. And then Conner exited Sunday's game with a ribs injury, and he never returned. And on top of that, Darrell Williams and Jonathan Ward also left the game and did not return. Benjamin could be atop the depth chart in week 6 against the Seahawks. He's an athletic back who thrives in the passing game, so he's especially appealing in PPR leagues. Go get Eno Benjamin. All right, enough of the waiver wire for now. We'll go back. We got a couple other guys to talk about. Let's talk some trades. That's what we're all here for, right? We want to talk trades. That's the fun shit. So one of the guys I'm trying to buy this week is Travis Etienne. In week 5, Travis Etienne outsnapped James Robinson 53% to 40% for the second straight week and the third time in 5 games. That's significant. As is the fact that Travis Etienne, he ran 27 routes to James Robinson's 16. And he saw 5 targets, which was an 11% target rate, to Robinson's 2. And they both had the same number of carries, while Travis Etienne outrushed James Robinson 71 yards to 27. As I discussed in week 3's game plan article and on this show, Travis Etienne is essentially a rookie. This is where his first 5 games. He's now played 5 NFL games. His snaps and opportunities continue to rise along with his performance on the field. He may never become that true bell cow and take a 70% opportunity share, but his role is going to continue to grow in this offense, especially in games where the Jaguars are playing from behind. And it's the Jaguars. They play from behind a lot. Now, we love Travis Etienne coming into the season. A lot of it because, his work in the pass game. For similar reasons, but later in the draft and, less enthusiastic, but, similar reasons, we like we liked Chase Edmonds. But it was, obvious early on in the season that we were wrong. Chase Edmonds was not going to be the lead guy in the Miami backfield. And that's why I pushed you to sell him a few weeks back. I was saying we gotta sell Chase Edmonds. He had some decent usage early that week 1. He had that 2 touchdown game. That was the time. That was the time to sell him. Now we've gotten to the point where you can't even sell him. And it's time to drop him. Just drop him altogether. His snap shares have dropped every week. And we're down to a mere 15% in week 5. If you thought maybe he'd at least maintain a passing downs role, well, that was wrong too. Edmonds was 3rd behind both Raheem Mostert and Myles Gaskin with just 5 routes run out of that Miami backfield. Mostert ran 20, Gaskin ran 9, Edmonds just 5. Even if Raheem Mostert's injury history comes back to get him, which is inevitable, right? It's inevitable that Raheem Mostert is going to get hurt at some point. Even if and when that does happen, we cannot confidently project a significant role onto Chase Edmonds. It would likely become a messy committee where Edmonds, Gaskin, and Salvon Ahmed would cannibalize each other. It would just be gross. It's not worth hanging on to. It's just not. These bunch of guys you can go pick up off the waiver wire this week. Already talked about a couple of them. And you can feel comfortable, confident in dropping Chase Edmonds. Now, I do see some questions in the chat on TikTok and on YouTube. I will take a few questions at the end of the show, but we're gonna go through all these guys. We've got 12 guys to talk about. We're already probably about halfway. At the end of the show, I will take some questions. So let's go back to the trade market, though. I want you to buy Ja'Marr Chase. Ja'Marr Chase has been underwhelming to start the season. If you drafted him with a top 5 pick in your draft, you're very disappointed with the way things have gone. You're frustrated. You're panicking. But this whole offense in Cincinnati has been a disappointment. The offensive line, though, has improved over the last 2 weeks, and we have to believe this offense is going to get better along with the improvement of the offensive line. Now, the good news is the Bengals are targeting Ja'Marr Chase at a high rate. He was 5th in target rate in week 5. And sure, that was with T. Higgins spending most of the game on the sidelines. But Chase ranks 8th among all wide receivers in target share for the season. And he's had just one game below a 25% share. These are elite top receivers in the NFL numbers. So he's still getting that usage. We know the talent is there, and we know the chemistry that he has with Joe Burrow. I am buying Ja'Marr Chase. So as I noted a few minutes ago when we talked about Pierre Strong, the Patriots are looking like they're going to be without Damian Harris for multiple weeks. That's going to thrust Ramondre Stevenson into a full bell cow role for the time being. So I'm buying Ramondre Stevenson. He's already taken the lead role, even with Harris, significantly outsnapping Damian Harris over the last few weeks, even before the injury. And not only that, Stevenson has become a target magnet out of the backfield with target shares of 16%, 24%, and 10% in the last 3 games. We know the Patriots want to run the ball, whether it's Mac Jones, whether it's Bailey Zappi, Brian Hoyer, whoever the fuck is at quarterback. The Patriots want to run the football. They want to involve their running backs in the game as much as they can. So without any competition for touches, Stevenson is looking like a fantasy RB1 for the foreseeable future. It's okay to buy high. I am trying to get Ramondre Stevenson. Now, we go from buying high to buying low. And that's for DeAndre Swift. I want to buy DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift managers are starting to get impatient. Just think about it. They have to be, right? They've been without him for 2 weeks because of his injury. And now they have to wait at least one more with the Lions on a bye week in week 6. If you're in a spot where you can afford to keep him on your bench for now, go make an offer for DeAndre Swift. He was playing well before the injury, and he's expected back in week 7. There was some thought that maybe he could have played in week 6, but they had the bye week. They wanted to give him some extra rest. He is expected back in week 7. The Lions offense was the league's top scoring offense through the first month of the season. And at the same time, they've given up the most points in the league. This is a dream environment for fantasy football. An absolute dream environment. I'm not only just trying to buy DeAndre Swift, that's just who we're talking about now. I want to get any Lions offensive player that I can on my roster. This is a dream scenario for fantasy football. The offense is pedal to the metal at all times, and they are racking up points. I want every part of this offense, especially their dynamic all-purpose runner DeAndre Swift. All right, let's head back to the waiver wire for a second, right? And I want you to see if Rondale Moore is still on your waiver wire. He's still available in a lot of leagues. He's come back from his injury. He missed the first, 3 weeks of the season? He's come back to a significant role in the Cardinals offense. And after running a route on 94.3% of Kyler Murray's dropbacks in week 4, he was at a 97.1% route participation rate in week 5. He's running all the routes. He's out on the field. And his target share went up from 16% to 21%. That's significant. Moore gets heavy usage out of the slot, which should help insulate his role when DeAndre Hopkins returns. So if you have a roster spot, you need a wide receiver, I'm going and getting Rondale Moore. All right, we got 2 more guys to talk about, and we'll take some questions. We got to buy and we got to sell 2 wide receivers here. The buy is Drake London. And I know Drake London's box score has been quiet over the last 2 weeks after getting off to a pretty productive start to the season. He scored 12.4 fantasy points in week 1, 22.6 in week 2, and 14.4 fantasy points in week 3. And then the last couple of weeks has been 3.7 and 7.5. However, the usage has not changed one bit. In a good way. And listen to this. Drake London sits only behind CeeDee Lamb and Cooper Kupp among wide receivers in target share. That's right, target share. Drake London is only behind CeeDee Lamb, who is number 1, and Cooper Kupp is number 2, and then it's Drake London number 3. His lowest share of the season was 21%, which is very good. And that was all the way back in week 1. And it hasn't dipped below 28% since then. The only problem is the Falcons are throwing the ball at a frustratingly low rate. If they ever decide to pass more, Drake London is going to be an absolute stud. And even if they don't, he can still be a productive wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, like he showed us in those first 3 weeks. Buy low on Drake London. All right. I'm going to get some hate for this one. But if I have any Gabriel Davis on my rosters, which I don't really have a lot of Gabe Davis, but I do have some. Surprisingly, I do have some Gabe Davis. But if I have him, where I do have him, I'm trying to sell him. He's on the block. Gabe Davis is on the block. Let me preface this by saying I am only selling Gabe Davis if I'm getting like wide receiver 1 or high-end wide receiver 2 value back in return. I'm not just selling him to sell him. I'm not crazy, or not that crazy. But we saw those 2 incredible big play touchdowns in week 5. That was fantastic, exciting, awesome. And if you had Gabe Davis in your lineup, you likely ran away with a win in your fantasy matchups because of those big plays. With that said, Gabriel Davis is still well behind Stephon Diggs in the Bills' pecking order. In fact, touchdowns aside, Gabriel Davis's usage has been mediocre at best. He had target shares of 16%, 10%, and 8% in his first 3 games to start the season. And then even in that big week 5, the number was only 17%, a 17% target share. That's not, like a wide receiver 2 level. And it's a 13% share for the season. That is not good. He needs to get that number into the 20s if he expects to return weekly wide receiver 2 production. Now, Gabe Davis has been on the field a ton and running nearly all the routes, so that is encouraging. I'll give you that. But if anyone expects week 5 to be the norm, they're very mistaken. And there are passionate Gabe Davis enthusiasts out there who are absolutely salivating over yesterday's performance, or what's today? Tuesday? Sunday's performance, whatever. They are absolutely salivating over that game. If one of those is in your league, cash in. That's the show. That is the show. If you're looking for more week 6 content, head over to yardsperfantasy.com or download the Yards Per Fantasy app for articles, rankings, trade calculator, start sit tool, and more. Let's get to some of these questions on TikTok and YouTube. I'll give you about 5 minutes or so. We'll answer some questions and then we'll get out of here. All right, what do we got? What do we got here? Let's see. We've got a few on YouTube. We'll start there and then we'll head over to TikTok. Tristan says, would you trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire for Breece Hall? Yes. If you watched the show Saturday night, and I actually posted a clip of this both on TikTok and on Twitter. If you watched the show on Saturday night, you already know my feelings on Breece Hall. We were ready. We were not shocked for that performance. I said Saturday night, right here on TikTok and on YouTube, I said that Breece Hall is about to explode. And what did he do the next day? He exploded. Over 100 yards rushing. He had 100 yards receiving. Got in the end zone. He exploded. 27 fantasy points. Breece Hall is the truth. If you can trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire for Breece Hall, Tristan, you better do it. Go do that right now. Let's see. We got one from Michael here on YouTube. He says, should I trade or hold Joe Mixon, James Conner, and Emmanuel? Why do I always say Emmanuel Sanders? I don't know why I always say Emmanuel Sanders. Miles Sanders. So I'm still definitely holding Joe Mixon, and I'm trying to buy him. The usage has been there. The usage has been elite for Joe Mixon, at least coming into week 5. James Conner, I don't think you can do anything with him right now because of the injury. He hasn't performed well. I think, well, we talked about it a few weeks ago that he was a sell, and clearly you should have sold him then. It's not looking good right now. He's not performing well, for one, and when he is performing, he's hurt. He's out. He's out right now. He's probably going to miss this week, at least. So I don't think you can do anything with James Conner right now. I don't think you can get a decent return back. If you can, I'm selling him. Easy. Sell him. So I think you have to hold James Conner unless somebody's going to pay healthy James Conner price for him. Miles Sanders, he's another guy that we talked about. Was it last week or the week before? I don't remember. We talked about as a buy high. He's getting the work. He's getting the work on the ground. He's getting the work in the passing game. The offense is fantastic. I want Miles Sanders on my teams. We have another one here that's asking, should I trade Jacoby Myers from Michael Thomas, Romeo Doubs, and A.J. Dillon? Yes. If you can trade away Jacoby Myers for all of that, I would do that. Yeah, I would do that. I have another one on YouTube here. It says, should I trade Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith for a high-end wide receiver 1? Are you asking, should you package them together for a high-end wide receiver 1? I'm going to assume that that's what is meant by this question. Yeah, I think you can do that. I think you can do that. But I think, once Waddle is healthy himself and Tua is back, I think he's a low end wide receiver one. But yeah, if you can package Waddle and Devontae Smith together and you can go get like a Diggs, yeah, I would do that. I would do that. Maybe you might even be able to get like a little bit of Diggs and something else on top of him in return. But yeah, I'd be floating that out there. Should I trade Mike Evans and Breece Hall for Saquon Barkley and Deontay Johnson? See, I'd love to go get Saquon, but I think I'm going to tell you I wouldn't do that. I'm going to keep Mike Evans. I'm going to keep Breece Hall, which kind of sounds crazy because if you have a chance to go get Saquon, go get him. But I think Breece Hall is on his way to being the next Saquon. And Deontay Johnson is just, right now. It's not his fault. He's got target competition. He's got a rookie quarterback, bad offense. It's not great. So I would take the Breece Hall and Mike Evans out of that deal. And last one from YouTube, it says, what are your thoughts on Alvin Kamara? I believe he had a 24% target share this week. So he's getting the passing game usage is back. I think he's just got to get himself healthy. But I think we talked about it on the show the other day. I think it was Saturday night, maybe it was Sunday morning. Alvin Kamara is kind of just blah right now. He's like, you got to play him, but you don't feel real excited about him. It's not like when you used to play Alvin Kamara, a couple years ago, like, I got Alvin Kamara in my lineup. I'm good. I don't feel that way about Alvin Kamara. Can he get back to that level this year? Probably not quite all the way. I think he can get better from where he is. If that passing game usage can come back to a elite level or close to it, that'd be fantastic. And if he can get healthy, James can get healthy, get that offense going, I think they'll be all right. But yeah, I think Kamara, if we had to rank him rest of the season, he's probably somewhere around like RB15, RB16, RB17, that area. He's a mid-range RB2 rather than being, the RB1 that you probably drafted him to be. So I trade Melvin Gordon and Adam Thielen for T. Higgins. Yes, I would do that. T. Higgins, he said after the game that the ankle was an issue, but he didn't think it was a big issue. He didn't think it was a big issue. He was being cautious with it. Now, we also have to be cautious with it as well because we know these ankles with these players, they can turn into something that plays out for the entire season. Even if the player's on the field, it can affect their performance. But it sounds like this may not be one of those situations. It sounds like he's going to be okay. Just being cautious with it. So if I can trade Melvin Gordon and Adam Thielen for T. Higgins, I would do that. Melvin Gordon is RB2 and RB2 at best. And Adam Thielen, you're probably playing him maybe in the flex or he's on your bench. Take those two guys and get a potential wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. I would do that. All right, let's take some more from TikTok and then we'll get out of here. Who wins this trade between Amon-Ra St. Brown and A.J. Dillon for Breece Hall and Christian Kirk? So I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. We talked about if we can go get Lions players right now, we're going to go get them. But we also love Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall could be a top 5 running back by the time we get to the fantasy playoffs. And I like Christian Kirk. I think Christian Kirk, we talked about him on last week's show as a buy. He remains a buy for me. So I would go and I would do the Breece Hall and Christian Kirk side of that deal. Jeff Wilson or Najee Harris rest of season. I think we have to say Najee Harris because at some point Elijah Mitchell is going to be back. At some point Mitchell is going to be back. He's going to take that RB1 job back in San Francisco. For the short term, it's probably a toss-up, and we might lean Jeff Wilson. James Conner or CEH. Conner might be out for a little bit, so I think we're going to go CEH. Should I trade Mike Williams for Brandon Ayuk and Christian Kirk? So this is kind of lineup dependent, roster dependent. If you need multiple starters in your lineup, if you need to fill an extra starting lineup spot, maybe a flex or a wide receiver 3, yes, I would do that. Otherwise, if one of those wide receivers is, barely going to break into your lineup, he's not a big upgrade over your other option at flex or wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, then I would say no, and I would hold Mike Williams. Saquon and Dobbs for Breece Hall and Christian Kirk. This one's from Kevin on YouTube. Saquon and Dobbs for Breece Hall and Christian Kirk. This one's pretty even to me. I think Saquon is a step up from Breece Hall, but it's not as far apart as it may seem. And Christian Kirk is definitely a step up from Romeo Dobbs. So it kind of evens itself out. So I would probably still lean the Saquon side for that. But it's a pretty fair deal. Should I trade Swift and Godwin for Diggs? I'm okay with that. That's another one that I feel is pretty equal. I'm okay with that. We got another one from Joe Mama on YouTube. He's asking, should he trade Mark Andrews and A.J. Brown for Rashad Bateman, Devontae Adams, and Gerald Everett? Mark Andrews and A.J. Brown for... No, I would take the Mark Andrews and A.J. Brown side of that deal. Give me Andrews and Brown. Should I trade Christian McCaffrey for Breece Hall and Joe Mixon? Yes, you should. I would do that. Should I trade Amon-Ra for Breece Hall and Chris Godwin? I think did we just answer that question? Amon-Ra for Breece Hall and Chris Godwin. Yes, I would do that. I would trade Amon-Ra for Breece Hall straight up. Should I trade James Conner for Keenan Allen? Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I would do that. Do I sell Breece Hall since Michael Carter's taken away goal line carries? No. The reason why Michael Carter took goal line carries in that game, because both of them came off of big Breece Hall plays. Michael Carter is not the goal line back. He may get some goal line carries. He may get some goal line work. But he is not, every time they get to the goal line, they're going to take out Breece Hall and put in Michael Carter. Breece Hall, I'm going to keep messing their names up. Breece Hall had a 79-yard catch that took him all the way to the 1-yard line. He ran 79 yards. The dude's winded. They take him out of the game. Happens all the time. We see big plays like that. We saw that happen with the Lions a few weeks back where DeAndre Swift had a few big runs or catches, whatever they were, took him down the 1-yard line. He was winded. They took him out and they put in Jamal Williams. That's what happens when you have two decent running backs. Michael Carter is not the goal line back. Do not sell high on Breece Hall. If anything, you should be buying Breece Hall because his value, his production, his role is only going to go up from here. Breece Hall is one of the most talented running backs we've seen come into the NFL in the last 5 years. He's right up there with Jonathan Taylor. He's right up there with Saquon Barkley. He is that level of talent, and his role is becoming that level of a role. If you can get Breece Hall, you're getting him. Do not sell him high unless you're getting an absolute massive return back for him. Should I drop Khalil Herbert for Mike Boone? If you need to start a running back in the flex or you need an RB2 this week, I'm fine with it. you can go get Mike Boone. Otherwise, I'd really like to hold on to Khalil Herbert because we've seen what Khalil Herbert can do when David Montgomery's out. And if that happens again, especially if this offense improves at all, you're going to be really regretting having dropped Khalil Herbert. So he's one of these guys, super valuable handcuffed. And as we get deeper into the season, handcuffed running backs become even more valuable. And I'm not talking about handcuffing your own running backs. You can handcuff other people's running backs. Even if you don't have David Montgomery, having Khalil Herbert on your bench is incredibly valuable. I do like Mike Boone, but Khalil Herbert is incredibly valuable. All right, let's do one more. I'm going to get out of here. We're going to do a whole show answering your questions on Sunday morning. Usually I do one on Saturday night as well. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do a show this Saturday night, but we'll do another one Sunday morning answering all your questions. Let's see. What do we got? Let's find a good one. I'm screwing this all up here. Let's see. Well, let's do a trade question. That's a start sit question. We'll wait on start sit questions at the end of the week. What should I do with Najee Harris? That's a good one. What should I do with Najee Harris? So I think there's some injury issue here with Najee Harris, but it's also a performance issue. Najee Harris was outsnapped by Jaylen Warren in week 5. See if I can find it here. Yeah. Jaylen Warren outsnapped Najee Harris 51% to 49% in week 5. That's not good. Whether it's performance-based, whether it's injury-based, a combination of the two, whatever it is not good. This is not a good offense. He's not catching the checkdowns that he was catching with Ben Roethlisberger because now he's got quarterbacks who can actually push the ball down the field. While that may be good for the wide receivers, it is not good for Najee Harris. And this is why we were not drafting Najee Harris this year. But if you did draft him and you have him, you're stuck with him, I think it's just that. You're stuck with him. I don't think you can sell Najee Harris at this point. If somebody in your league is going to buy him for the name value, go ahead and do it. If you can sell Najee Harris and get a good return back for him, go ahead and do it. Otherwise, I think you're stuck with him. And you're just going to see what happens. But I'm not very optimistic. I am not optimistic about Najee Harris at this point. But anyway, I appreciate everybody tuning in. This was a fun show. We talked all these ads, drops, buys, and sells. Like I said before, if you I didn't answer your questions, we got all kinds of resources at yardsperfantasy.com. My rankings are going to drop late tonight for week 6. Just go to yardsperfantasy.com. Check us out there. We got all kinds of content coming out. TikTok, YouTube, articles, everything. All the guys we talked about today is ads, drops, buys, and sells. I wrote that up in an article, published it a couple hours ago on yardsperfantasy.com. You can find that. So if you missed any of the show today, you can see all the guys I am trying to get, all the guys I'm adding, dropping, buying, selling this week in fantasy football. You can find that on the website, yardsperfantasy.com, or just download the Yards Per Fantasy app. Just go to the App Store and search Yards Per Fantasy, download our app. You got a trade calculator on there. You got our start sit tool, all our rankings, dynasty rankings, week 6 rankings going to come out tonight. So many resources. So we're killing it at Yards Per Fantasy. Appreciate everybody who supports us. Yeah, that's the show. Thanks, guys.